Oh, he sold a gazillion albums, over 30 million albums. He's won pretty much every award you could win in the music industry. He's also a pretty darn good follow on social media. Myself and Richard Marx, we probably agree a lot politically on a lot of different issues. And Richard Marx Casino on July 29th. I've seen his shows a bunch of times, and oh man, this guy puts on a great show. And we're honored to have him on the show with us right now. The legend himself, Richard Marx, joining us. Richard, it's good to see you, my friend. How are you?
I'm good, buddy. How are you?
Doing fantastic, Richard. So I want to talk to you about obviously your career and your upcoming show. You got a new album coming out. But before I do that, I have to ask you, have you always been this outspoken about politics? Because I love the way you call out the alt-right buffoons out there, as we both would say. Have you always been this outspoken, or like me, did Donald Trump kind of get it out of you like he kind of got it out of me over the last 4 or 5 years?
Yeah, I would say that that's accurate. I mean, in my 20s and 30s, I was, you know, I was so self-absorbed, in between my having kids, having a career, then having kids and a family, and also, I was always a little skeptical about politicians. I never really got behind. I thought Clinton was a really good president for the country. I thought we thrived under him. But then again, the first election I had the opportunity to vote in I voted for Ronald Reagan, and because I felt like he was the better candidate, and I was never particularly partisan up until it happened definitely before Trump. It happened during the Bush Jr. era. But it's funny because when you go after the alt-right, when you go after the people like Trump and a lot of the people who are in the majority of the modern GOP for being completely traitorous and criminal, and you get tagged as being this uber lib guy, and
Right.
I'm not a registered Democrat. I'm an
Neither am
independent
I.
voter, and it's just that to me, it's not about politics. And for the last 5 years, it's not been about politics. It's about decency and patriotism and the Constitution.
Yeah. Richard, I agree with you 100%. I'm an independent. And when
Yeah.
I speak about Donald Trump, I use the term orange turd to describe him. Forgive me, but that's the word that I use.
I think you and I should go drinking, man.
We should. Richard, you and I agree on just about everything. It's funny because you tweeted this story out earlier today, and I talked about it in the first segment. This GOP lawmaker who attends his gay son's wedding, which is great, by the way, right? But then 3 days after that, he voted against the same-sex marriage bill. Isn't this the definition of hypocrisy?
It's the ultimate definition. And look, there's enough hypocrisy to go around. I've never seen just a level of it than in the majority of the Republican Party, and these congressmen like that guy, I just don't know how they sleep at night, but I guess they sleep really well because, the last 5 years shows that so far there's been no accountability, no real consequences. We'll see what happens with the January 6th committee. By the way, I feel like every time I say we'll see what happens, which is something that we've all said our whole lives, I think of Trump saying it, and I feel like he's poisoned that. It's like when I see an American flag on a house now, I immediately think that they're MAGA. We have to take that shit back, man. We have to it doesn't belong to them.
I agree with you. I have to ask you this. Have you ever met Ted Nugent or Kid Rock? I mean, you've been in this industry such a long time. What do you make of these buffoons that are just trash, in my opinion? What do you make of these two? Have you ever met them or had a conversation with them?
Never met Kid Rock. Met Ted Nugent once, 20 years ago at some, actually, I think it was at an event raising money for like tornado victims or something. So I got to at least say that I'm pretty sure it was an event like that where there were a bunch of musicians who came together to help raise money for a town that had been hit by a tornado or something.
Right.
Look, I don't know Ted Nugent. I don't know Kid Rock. I also, I feel like maybe I'm rare in this case, but I really can separate what someone does for a living from their politics. And, even people I think are just insane. Like James Woods, to me, the stuff that he has said publicly and tweets is just so horrific and
He's
gross.
nuts. Yeah.
It doesn't mean that when he comes on and Against All Odds, I won't go, wow, he's really a great actor. I can actually hold two opinions at the same time. I know that sounds crazy.
Yeah.
But when it comes to those two musicians, I don't know them. It's a weird thing, man. I've met a few people who I've come to know being really extreme far right ideology holders. I'll give you a perfect example. I did Governor Huckabee's show on Fox a couple of times over the years, and ended up sitting in a green room with him, and he couldn't have been a more charming, polite host. That was years ago. If I saw him now, I would actually, because I did have a little bit of a rapport with him off stage. I think if I saw him now, I would say, "Can I talk to you for a minute? I need to know that I'm not crazy. Like, are you an actually decent guy? Because it seems like you're not,
Richard, haven't some of these people changed? Like, I remember I used to watch Tucker Carlson on CNN because you got two sides. I remember Hannity and Combs. I used to watch that show because you got both sides.
Yeah.
It just seems like Tucker Carlson has turned into this white supremacist sympathizer, and Donald Trump, I'm sorry, Sean Hannity, he seems to wear the Donald Trump knee pads every night, for lack of a better term. It just seems like some of these people have changed and been radicalized.
Yeah, well, I don't know about that they've been radicalized. I think that they've seen an opportunity that they felt like they were going to put all their eggs in that basket. I think it's completely mercenary on their part. I think they know exactly what they're doing. I don't know Sean Hannity or Tucker Carlson. I always thought that they were buffoons. Look, Sean Hannity has a history in radio, just like Glenn Beck used to have a history in radio and rock radio and pop radio. Some of these guys, that have been around for a long time, if you know anything about their past, they were always buffoons. They were always kind of mercenary, bumbling morons. It's just that they stepped in shit and they got a huge following. I think Sean Hannity is a really, really dangerous guy, but I don't think there's anybody on the scene more dangerous and more evil, like in his soul evil, than Tucker Carlson.
I agree with you. If you're just joining us, Richard Marx, this is a guy who sold over 30 million albums, fantastic musician. He's got a show coming up, by the way, at Green Valley Ranch at the end of the month, July 29th. I will certainly be at that show. He puts on a great show. I guess before we get to his, the music, and by the way, he's got a new album that's coming out in September. Before we get to that, I guess I'll ask it like this. If you had an opportunity to be in a room with Donald Trump behind closed doors, Richard, what would you say to him? I'm just curious. Like, what would you say to this man if you had the opportunity?
Shine my shoes. I wouldn't say anything to him. I mean, he's first of all, I think he's really mentally unstable. I think he's a sociopathic, unhinged, ill person. So I wouldn't want anything to do with him. I look, at this point, I don't think there's anyone on the planet who could say anything to him in any environment or circumstance that would make any difference. I think it's like, could you say to Hitler, dude, maybe chill a little bit? No, you're at a point where there are certain people who are just so far gone that it doesn't matter who speaks to them or what is said.
Yeah, understood. I certainly don't disagree with you. Let's talk a little bit about your new album coming out in September. You performed a number of times here in Las Vegas over the years. Can you talk to me a little bit about Las Vegas and why you enjoy coming back here? And it seems like your shows usually sell out every time. Talk to me a little bit about performing here over the years in Las Vegas.
Well, I mean, I've been around long enough to have watched the transition from, when I first started, '87 was my first album, and Vegas was a place that I don't think I played there until the '90s because it was considered not where a credible rock pop artist plays. And then over time, it became, uh, it shifted so dramatically that now you have, like, you know, all these years, I don't know, it started maybe 15 years ago with the residencies, and you've got just everybody from, I mean, if you told me 25, 30 years ago that Rod Stewart would be having a residency in Las Vegas, I would have been like, there's no way. It's just changed. It's just shifted, and it's just a place where people come to be entertained, and why not be a part of that? So when I started in Vegas, there was, I want to say it was like 92 at the Rio, and it was outdoors. It was like, it was not much different than playing the Greek Theater in LA, or what was called Pine Knob in Detroit, or any of these outdoor venues. It was a proper performance venue, and
Yeah.
and in Vegas, I played
If
with my band. I'm touring in his band, and you know, it's been years and years. So I mean, it's just another great city that I love to come and play.
when you're in your car driving, I'm curious, what music are you listening to? What is like your go-to album? What are the musicians that Richard Marx listens to in his spare time?
Um,
Uh-oh, did we lose you?
are we like technical difficulties?
A little bit
Am I
on and
breaking up
off.
on you,
Yeah.
or you're good? Okay, sorry
You
about
broke
that.
up a little bit. I got you back. Go ahead.
Okay. Um, you might be surprised that, you know, I don't have go-tos. I tend to listen to whatever's new. I want to know what's going on now. And so I'm a big fan of like New Music Friday or whatever. I'll look on and I listen to all the platforms. So if I go to Apple Music, it's going to be whatever's the current hot, you know, 100 top songs in America. They have a playlist of 100 songs from the world. So you know, I love to listen to whatever's being played in the UK or in Germany, and I tend to just sort of love young, new music. You're not going to find me sitting in my car listening to, I mean, and I still love everything from the Eagles to the Doobie Brothers to Elton to Zeppelin to Queen to, I mean, I love all that stuff, but I've heard it so much. I want to always be sort of stimulated by something new. And so that's when like every so often I hear somebody put out a new record and I go, oh man, that's like,
Yeah.
it's really cool. And usually I'll look and it's, those guys are awesome.
I have to ask you this. You mentioned the Strip in Las Vegas. What do you make of, you know, you're the true musician, obviously. What do you make of, and I won't mention any names, but some musicians, and I put that in quotations, that lip sync, that do shows on the Strip, they'll be getting paid 300-400 grand a show. They don't play a musical instrument and they're not singing, they're just dancing. I mean, do you still consider them musicians? And what do you make of that era of maybe the last 10 or 15 years, where you have performers that, some of them, for lack of a better term, they can't really sing and they don't play any instruments? Do you still consider that a concert? And what do you make of that? I'm just curious.
I have two separate thoughts about it. One is that for me as a music fan, that's probably not going to be something that I'm going to be into. I like people who can really pull it off live, who are great musicians or great singers or great performers. That said, you know, it's been a long time now. It wasn't, you know, 25 years ago or whatever that was. I mean, people like Milli Vanilli, that sweet girl Ashley Simpson getting caught lip syncing on Saturday Night Live. Those were sort of like career-ending moments, right?
Yep.
Over time, for whatever reason, the public doesn't care. The public, the fans, if they go see a pop artist whose songs they hear on the radio and they love, and even if they find out that that person is lip syncing the whole show, they don't care. And I say, you know, I'm kind of jealous every night, and I sing 20 songs or more. It's like wear and tear, man. Like I'm up there, I have calluses on my fingers from playing, and my voice keeping shaking. hard
Yeah.
and I sing, it's athletic.
Yeah.
You know, there have been times when I thought, why don't I just lip sync? But I just couldn't do it. There's no way I could do that.
Yeah. Well, you don't need to
I
do it
feel
because you
like
actually
I don't
you
need
don't
to do
have to
it,
do that.
right? But I do feel like it's a bit of a bait and switch. I feel like it's cheating a little bit. That said,
Mhm.
I know that the majority of, especially younger pop fans, they don't care.
Yeah. I have to ask, do you ever go back and look at some of your videos of like the 80s with the hair and, you're going out there singing the song Satisfied in front of like 100,000 people, the old guitars, the old hair? Because I got to be honest, I went on YouTube yesterday and I was looking at some of your older concerts and I thought it was awesome. Like, do you get embarrassed when you see yourself from like 30 or 40 years ago, or do you embrace it? I'm just curious. 30 or 40 years ago, or do you? I'm just curious.
By the way, Brian, I'm going to move because
Okay. Okay. Yes, minor technical difficulties with the phone, some bad
yeah, this is
reception.
already
So he's
this.
going to move a little bit so we can be a
Yeah.
little bit more clear because we're getting to the good stuff now, man. The
Like,
80s, I'm asking him
this is
about.
now,
Uh,
this
go
has
ahead,
now turned
Richard.
into an episode. We've accidentally turned into an episode of Cribs now. I would say that you asked me a question, and now I completely forgot because I noticed that our
Totally okay. I'll ask it. By the way, wherever you moved, you sound much better now. I want to be. I
Yeah,
want
I
to
think
just
it's
let you
better
know.
now.
Yeah, much better.
Sorry
So
about that.
I asked you, like, I was on YouTube yesterday. I'm looking at some of your older concerts from like the late 80s, early 90s, where you're singing Satisfied in front of like
Oh,
100,000 people. I look at the hair and the guitars and everything. Do you embrace that? Does it embarrass you? Like, because I think it's awesome. Do you ever go back and look at some of that old footage and what do you think?
Well, I mean, I think it helps that I still have a bunch of hair, which would, I guess it would bum me out if I saw stuff like that and I'm like, wow, I remember when I used to have hair. No, you have to have a laugh. I mean, it was so ridiculous. Some of the stuff that I wore. Plus, look, it helps that I have 3 sons who are like my best friends. They're a grown adult men. We hang out. They're my drinking buddies. But especially when they were teenagers, they busted my balls about those old videos to the point where you have to laugh. I mean, it's sort of ridiculous. Some of the stuff I wore and the way my hair looked. And if you're uptight about that or insecure about it, then you're just, come on. It's hilarious.
Yeah. What is it like been going in public life? Obviously, your beautiful wife, Daisy Fuentes, who I grew up watching, on MTV. What
Me
is
too.
that like? I mean, for basically almost your entire life, you've been out there in the public, your personal life, your marriage, everything. What is that like for the average everyday person that doesn't understand that? What is that like being in gossip magazines and all that sort of thing? Like, what has that been like for you over the course of the last 40 plus years?
Well, there's been very little to none of that. I was never that kind of. Uh, I hesitate to even use the word celebrity. It was about the music for me, and I never embraced that kind of press. When I started out, the first album, I already had a steady girlfriend of a couple of years, and then I got married to her, Cynthia, and we were married for 25 years, and so. I never got arrested. I never went to rehab. There was nothing to write about. I didn't go to parties. I didn't go to premieres. I worked. I wrote songs. And then when I wasn't working on albums and tours for myself, I was writing songs for other people. I never had much interest in pursuing that sort of attention or press. So there's like none of it. I mean, there was a little bit of it when I got divorced, and then when I met Daisy, and Daisy and I were together for almost 2 years before anybody even knew we were dating.
Wow.
In fact, it was the first picture that we ever posted together. We got caught by the paparazzi once or twice coming out of a restaurant, 6 months before we got married. But the first time we ever posted anything as a couple was our wedding picture.
Wow.
And it's just that I've always been really private, and Daisy has been as well. And so we had that common sensibility. I know I'm friends with some people who have, you know, to this day are just constantly followed, and I feel actually kind of lucky. You know, I've been able to have this amazing career that I still enjoy, but I can also go to the deli. You know what I mean? Like I can go get a coffee, and it's like if and people come up to me, but it's not a big deal. It's like, hey man, I love that song, or I saw you on tour last year, whatever. And I love when people come up to me.
Really?
Really? Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Because nobody's going to come up to you to be a dick. You know, people always come up because they like what you do, or they want to have a picture with you, or in fact,
Well, Richard, do you? I want to ask you this because some of the musicians and friends that I know from being in radio for 20 years, they tell me, like you, when they share their political beliefs or their frustration, as I do, it's my job. At times, they lose fans because of that. Now, I really don't care. I think a lot of people listen to me because they don't like me. But like in your situation, do you feel like you've maybe lost some fans because of your political beliefs or going after what I believe is the right thing to do and going after the alt-right? Do you feel like you've lost fans because of that? What are your thoughts on that?
Maybe, but look, a couple of things about that. You know, one of my favorite things that people say online is you're alienating half the country. No, first of all, half the country doesn't think like you do. It's a real pretty small fraction of people who are that you know, their ideology is that extreme. Number two, if anything, in the last 5 years, my business is better. Like everything is even picked up a bit. There's it's in another gear. The other thing is that some of these people who might like my music but are so politically opposed to me in terms of ideology, what they wouldn't have any way of knowing unless they come to the show is that there is none of that in my show. And that's a real conscious choice on my part. As passionate as I am about a lot of these issues, I also feel really strongly that 2 hours on stage where people are paying to hear me perform, everyone in that room is going to get the same show, which is I'm going to play my heart out. I'm going to kid around. I'm going to joke. I don't go political on stage ever.
I appreciate that.
Because I feel like it's not the time or place.
I think that's the smart thing to do. I really do. All right, I have to ask you this. I have to go back to politics here. Who would you say you would like to see run in the Democratic Party in 2024 for president? I have a few names myself, but I want to hear from you. And my second question is there anybody on the right that you could ever see supporting in 2024? I personally think Ron DeSantis is going to be the guy for the Republicans, who I can't stand. I think he's a despicable human being. I see some people on the left. I don't know if Michelle Obama would run. I think she would be great. I don't think Joe Biden should run again. That's just my personal opinion. What are your thoughts on that?
All right. Well, so far I completely agree on every point you just made. The only difference is that I can't think of anyone. I hope it's someone who's younger. You know, again, as I said at the outset, I have such a distaste and distrust of politicians in general and I've had moments of sort of like getting behind someone, at least initially, and kind of feeling it out. It's just not a world that I like to be personally a part of. I think that there's a level of mercenary ego that almost is needed to be a successful politician. Certainly when you're talking about running for president. You know, if you held a gun to my head and said you have to support someone in the political landscape on the Democratic side, it would be Pete Buttigieg. He would be probably my only. And I have some issues with him too, from when he ran before. But I think that he's probably, from what I can tell, the smartest, most decent guy who seems to really care about the country. There's no one on the right, and I agree that DeSantis is probably going to be the nominee, and it's just sort of like, it just blows my mind. It blows my mind that people can listen to that rhetoric or listen to what, or know what they stand for, and the way they vote and the way they feel about so many people within the country, and support that. And I guess it's just sort of like, I think I'm saddened by the reality that so much of the country is still so bigoted, and they sort of like, most of my lifetime, you had to like keep that stuff to yourself. If you spoke out about, if you like called people names, or if you showed your racism or your bigotry, you would get canceled. And the way before
Trump gave them that platform. Do you agree with me on that one? I think Trump made them more comfortable in their racism and bigotry, and that's why they're more outspoken now than maybe they were 5 years ago. Do you agree with that?
100%. He put air in their lungs and wind in their wings.
Yeah. I have to have fun with you, Richard, and I have to ask you this question.
Okay.
You had Lauren Boebert and Marjorie Taylor Greene sitting front row for one of your shows. How difficult would that be for you to not say something? And what if they wanted to meet you backstage? What would be your response to that? And how difficult would that be for you having to look at them the entire show?
Well, I would never, ever let anybody like that backstage. I wouldn't, those people, those two women particularly, I wouldn't even, if they reached out their hand to shake my hand, I wouldn't shake their hand. I think they're both just despicable human beings.
Agree with you 150%.
If they came to my show, I'd have to hire someone to sort of phonetically sound out the lyrics to them, because they're so stupid that they couldn't understand the lyrics. And I don't want to have to pay for somebody to do that. Or I'd have to sing the songs repeatedly and more slowly so that they could maybe understand the words. No, you're talking about, those are really extreme examples of how bad things are on the political landscape. Those two, particularly, as JoJo from Jers on Twitter, she's great, calls her Marjorie Three Toes. She's really, really an awful, awful, degenerate human being, for sure.
Do you mind if I ask you one or two more political questions? I know you probably have to go. Do you have time for a few more?
Yeah, I got a bolt, but hit me.
Okay. What are your thoughts on what Republicans are doing when it comes to abortion, the overturning of Roe versus Wade? Richard, did you ever think in this country that Roe versus Wade would be overturned? And what do you make of it?
No, I never, ever, it never dawned on me. It was unfathomable to me. And partly because I guess those of us we have to take responsibility for our own laziness, just like the Democrats have to take responsibility for not codifying it. I think we all have to sort of, we trusted even Republicans who said, that's not going to get overturned. Even these Supreme Court justices who lied under oath and said that they were not going to touch Roe v. Wade.
Yeah.
They perjured themselves, essentially, and they're getting away with it. I think we all just sort of, I guess, for lack of a better term, we took it for granted that would not be something that we'd have to worry about. I still can't really kind of wrap my head around it, but to me, it's like the pregame. What's coming next is same-sex marriage and interracial marriage, and it's unbelievable to me that there are people who are in favor of this.
Yeah, it's disgusting.
Yeah, I kind of can't believe it, and I'm heartbroken about it, actually.
So as am I. Speaking of heartbroken, one more political question for you. Gun control. I mean, you have so many Republicans out there that say more guns are the answer. I think there should be an assault weapons ban. I think there's a lot of things we should do. An 18-year-old shouldn't be able to, I'm sure you agree with me, walk into a gun store when they turn 18, buy a bunch of AR-15s and 6,000 rounds of ammunition. What do you make of where we're at in this country right now, where it seems like we have a mass shooting every day that we have to talk about?
Well, I mean, it's insane. It's harder to get Sudafed than an AR-15. It's interesting, Brian, because like abortion and gun control, I might fall. I don't think anybody's pro-abortion. Like all these the talking points on the right that try to taint the narrative, and it's just propaganda. It's just lies. They go, Democrats want to kill babies. Democrats are pro-abortion. That's just a lie. There's none of us feel that way. Right. But then again, the choice of a woman as to what to do with her body, it has to supersede everything else.
Agree.
And so I will be forever staunchly pro-choice. Doesn't mean that I'm like, yay, abortion. Like no,
Right.
no feeling person, especially a parent,
Right.
feels that way. And it's interesting because I also like the other lie that's being told not nonstop is that we, and I don't put myself in the category of Democrat, but the anti-GOP want to take away your guns or like abolish the Second Amendment.
That's a lie.
Not true. Not true. I have nothing against the Second Amendment.
Right.
I have a real problem with, like anything else, historically, as time passes, there are things that just don't work anymore in the form that they were in the form in which they were originated.
Yeah.
And it's time for major gun reform. Major. I don't know how many more kids have to be slaughtered in a school or grandparents at the mall for us to all sort of go, hey, can we all at least get together on this because this is out of control? Let's find some common ground. The fact that there is no common ground to be had when it comes to the Republicans in power, to me is sort of like a statement of how little they really do care about life.
And Richard, isn't it interesting? Lies on the right. They want to say Democrats want to take all your guns away. You just spoke about that. That is not true. Again, lies about defunding the police. 99% of Democrats do not want to defund the police. But we can go on and on, Richard. I could talk to you hours about politics. I think you and I agree on just about everything. Last question for you, Richard, and I really appreciate your time. I know you got to go. Your show is July 29th at Green Valley Ranch. I've seen you multiple times. It's a phenomenal show. For people maybe that are thinking of going out to see you, talk to me about what they should expect. I know you got a new album coming out in September, but you're also playing all of your radio hits, which is quite a few of them, by the way. Talk about your upcoming show, what people should expect on July 29th.
Well, this particular show on July 29th, I'm going to do all Metallica songs with just me and my acoustic guitar.
Enter Sandman. Richard, I like that.
The show is pretty much what I've been doing for a while in that, again, I am really, really grateful every minute of every day that I have a set list full of hit songs that people know. And so I do as many of the hits as I can fit into that particular show. I do some songs that were hits that I wrote for other people, which is always kind of a fun thing because sometimes people who come to hear certain songs of mine had no idea that I wrote that Keith Urban song or that NSYNC song or that Josh Groban song, whatever. And I throw stuff into the show that's really fun for us to play or me to play. And we're gonna. The show this time is a band show. My band is an unbelievable 3 musicians who we're like brothers. We have so much fun up there. And we're going to throw in a couple of new songs from the upcoming album. So the album coming out in September is called Songwriter. And it's probably the most ambitious album I've ever made, Brian, because as I was working on it over the last 13 or 14 months, I just decided to go for all these different genres. And so it's basically 5 pop songs, 5 rock songs, 5 country songs, and 5 beautiful ballads. It's a double album, it's 20 songs. And so I'm going to do a little bit from each of those it's like 4 EPs that make up a whole double album.
Wow.
So this first single, which is from the pop side of it, came out last week called Same Heartbreak, Different Day. I wrote it with my son Lucas and he produced it. The country track that's going to come out first in 6 weeks or so, I wrote with Keith Urban. And this rock song that's coming out in a few weeks, I wrote with my other son, Jesse, one of my other sons, Jesse. And that's a pretty heavy rock song that I can't wait for people to hear. And then right before the album comes out in September, I'm going to drop a ballad that I wrote with the legendary Burt Bacharach. We wrote it just like a couple of years ago. And Burt just turned 94 years old and he's still writing songs like nobody's business. It's unbelievable.
God, I love how you incorporate your kids, your family into your album. Richard, thank you so much for taking the time to join us. And I got to say, man, if you ever did a political talk show, I would listen to it every day, my friend. I'm definitely going to get out there on the 29th and catch your show. And if I get a chance to say a quick hello, I will bring you a gift, maybe Donald Trump toilet paper. I don't know, but I will bring you something, Richard, okay?
It would be great. It would be great to say hi to you. And we have to make a point to go have a drink sometime and talk more about all this.
I would love to, Richard. You and I pretty much agree on everything. The only difference is you've sold about 30 million more albums than I have. Other than that, hey, Richard, appreciate you coming on, my man. Thank you so much for your time, and can't wait for your show. Thank you so much.
Thanks, brother. Take care.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
See ya.
That is Richard Marx, everybody.